Hello, I'm Jenny Baker, and I'm going to tell you how to be an urban cyclist. People have very strong opinions about cycling. Already today, I've been told by a car driver that all cyclists should have number plates on their bikes and should have to pay road tax. And I've also heard about a cyclist who dared to remonstrate with a car who had cut him up quite dangerously, and he got punched in the face as a result and ended up with a fractured skull. So there are high tensions around cycling, particularly in the city. And it seems like cycling was so much more simple when I was a child. And my first bike was a trike that I was given, there it is, by my older cousin when I was about 3. And I just loved cycling as a child. I grew up in the fearless days where children were still allowed out to play, and so my bike gave me the freedom of the village. I cycled less as a teenage girl. Like so many teenage girls, I got out of sync with my body, and the low point of my cycling career came when I was 18 and I went to university in Bath, and I sold my bike just before I went because I knew that Bath was going to be a bit hilly. That's a shameful moment in my cycling life. But I got back into cycling when I did triathlons. And I did my first triathlon on a heavy mountain bike, and I had a nice road bike by the second. Some of the best times of my life in the last few years have been on a bike. And so some of my happiest memories. A couple of years ago, when I lost a job that I loved and I was trying to work out what to do next, I went on my own cycling retreat, and I cycled across the country, the classic coast-to-coast route from Whitehaven to Tynemouth, complete with punctures and always accompanied by Marks and Spencer's luxury fruit and nut. And it was a great moment to reach the other end, get to the other end. I've been cycling with the Amos Trust Road Club a few times. We've been from London to Paris. We cycled from Inverness to Fort William and back. This year we did Calais to Bruges. Last year with them, I did the Dunwich Dynamo. That's an overnight ride, 120 miles from Hackney to Dunwich on the Suffolk coast. And yes, I wanted to give up cycling uphill in the dark at 3 o'clock in the morning, but a couple of hours later the sun had come up, and we came across a family who had set up a gazebo in their front garden, and they were serving coffee, and that was the best cup of coffee I've had in my life, and that kept me going. And it was an amazing sight to arrive on the beach, because I did arrive a long time after most people had got there, and see the beach covered with bikes. Cycling makes me really happy. I love the freedom of getting somewhere under my own steam. I love the challenge of cycling with really good cyclists and trying to keep up with them. I love cycling home after a night out through the quiet streets and feeling the cool night air on my skin and listening to the sound of my own breathing. I love that bone-aching tiredness that you get and that profound sense of well-being after you've been on the bike for a day. And I'm even strangely fond of that ridiculous cycling tan that you get that's testament to hours on your bike. And so when I've worked in central London, it's made sense to do the commute a couple of times a week by bike. But like many people, I found that quite daunting to think about. You feel very vulnerable when the outer skin of your vehicle is your own outer skin. When you compare the size of your bike to the size of the buses that you're going to share a lane with, and when you hear that 6 cyclists this year have been killed on London streets already, and you think, how can I compete with all that traffic? But the trick is not to be apologetic or intimidated. I don't know if you remember that cartoon, The Arabian Nights, that was part of the Banana Splits show on a Saturday morning. I think I'm showing my age. But there was a character called Bez who could change his size, and he would say size of an elephant or size of a bee, and he would become that thing. And I think as a cyclist in the city, you need to think of yourself as the size of a car, and you're in the centre. And so you don't hug parked cars, and you don't cycle in the gutter, and you don't squeeze down the inside of lorries, but you cycle assertively, visibly, confidently. You enjoy your right to be on the road. You make eye contact with bus drivers, particularly bus drivers. You go to the front of traffic queues, and you are alert and wise and confident. But having found your wheels, so to speak, the temptation then is to get too big for them. To think, I'm going to go through that red light because I can see there's no one coming and it would be better for me to get out of the way of the traffic. To think, I'll just cycle on that pavement because then it will save me a bit of time. To think, I'm going to ignore the cyclist dismount signs at Notting Hill because it's a pain to unclip my shoes and I would rather just cycle through there and be quick. And there are different schools of thought on this, and there are acres of internet forums justifying jumping red lights and telling you that it's safer and so on. And I often feel like it's only nerdy me who is waiting at the red lights while all the other cyclists sail through. But in my view, every red light jumped makes one more driver pissed off and impatient. Every pavement cycled on makes one more person anti-bike. And every no cycling sign that's ignored justifies the minds of those people that think it's okay to knock cyclists off their bike and then tweet about it. And I had a bit of an epiphany a few weeks ago when I was cycling through London and getting frustrated with the summer cyclists wobbling along on Boris bikes. And I realised how irritated I was getting and how I was losing the joy of cycling and I was no longer smiling. And I had this thought that there is no I in city cyclist, or there ought not to be. This is not just about me getting home as fast as I can. This isn't a space to race or get frustrated with people. It needs a change of mindset to see cycling as a collaboration rather than a competition. I'm not battling traffic, I am traffic. There's a need to surrender to the reality of this type of cycling being different. There's a lot of wisdom in that phrase of treating others as you want to be treated, that if you want respect, you need to show respect. I don't want to be cut up by taxis. I don't want to be pulled in on by buses. I don't want to be shouted at by car drivers. I don't want to be narrowly missed by mopeds. And yes, there's things I'd like to say to all those people, but what I can control is my behaviour. And so my radical idea for being an urban cyclist is to play by the rules, to stop for red lights, to keep off the pavements, to pay attention to the no cycling signs, to stop swearing at Boris bikes, and to stop intimidating pedestrians by swooping past them. I'm going to continue to be the nerd, waiting at the red lights while other people go past me. I'm going to dare to believe that cycling respectfully in the city might just diffuse the tension in the traffic by a tiny, tiny bit, and might just make London, or whatever other city you might cycle in, a little bit safer. So join me in a cycling revolution of doing the right thing in the city, and leaving the other side of cycling, the speed, the acceleration, the competition, for the open road and the off-road cycle tracks. So how should you be an urban cyclist? Like most of life, I think it needs a complex mix of contrasting things. You need to be assertive and selfless. You need to be confident and respectful. You need to be bold and generous. And you need to keep a smile on your face. Thank you.